Hello, world, and hello, amazing Philippines. Good day to all. Today, we're going to discuss Module 1 of our Assessment 1, that is, Assessment of Student Learning 1. The title of our module is The Shift of Educational Focus from Content to Learning Outcomes. This is Sir A or Sir Mar saying, of course, have a good time, of course, with this lecture video. But before we start, of course, I would like to invite you to click like, share, and of course, leave a comment in the comment section, okay, about, of course, this lecture video. Or, of course, you can subscribe. Thank you very much. So for our, of course, learning outcomes, we have the following. The first is explain at least three characteristics of outcome-based education. The second is distinguish among institutional outcomes, program outcomes, the course outcomes, and of course, learning instructional outcome. Then formulated, of course, learning outcomes based on the given educational objective. And lastly, created acrostic, then graphic organizer, and of course, reflection paper regarding of course, the lesson or the module. It is said that, of course, the educative process happens, of course, between the teacher and the student. And education, the word education rather originated from the terms educare, that means to train or to mold, and educer, that is to lead out. And ironically, of course, however, for centuries, we believe that education is pouring in process. So we pour in, of course, with the lectures, particularly, of course, the one that we are discussing now to our students is known as, of course, the pouring in. And of course, the teachers are the infallible giver, okay, of the knowledge, and students was, of course, the passive recipient of course, the learning. And we cannot deny the fact that the focus of instruction were, of course, the content and the subject matter. So that's it. We are also used, no, or we were used to regarding education basically in terms of designating a set of subjects to take. And when, of course, the course is completed, we pronounce that the students, okay, are, of course, educated, assuming that, of course, the instruction and activities were provided or we provided will lead to the desired knowledge, the skills, and other attributes that we think the course passers would, of course, possess. So that's it. No? Our probably measurement if students learn is that, of course, the students would have good grades in that subject. Okay, so if there are, of course, 8 subjects in that semester, we're expecting that the students would pass. And thus, these, of course, notion connotes a person or a student being educated. That is the assumption. And of course, the advent of technology caused the change, no, a change in perspective in education, either, of course, nationally and internationally. So there is now the shift, and the teacher ceased to be the sole source of knowledge before. And with knowledge explosion, of course, students are surrounded with various sources of facts and information accessible through user-friendly technology. So we think, of course, technology because of these, no, technologies, we can explore a lot of information or facts. Okay, that is really beneficial, no, in educating rather the mind of the students. So the teachers has become, of course, facilitator of knowledge. There is now the shift, no, from being, of course, the center, okay, of the teaching and learning process. Here comes, of course, the teacher as facilitator of knowledge, who assist in, of course, organization or organizing, interpretation or interpreting, and of course, validation of unacquired facts and information. So that's it. Now here comes, of course, the students as the center of the teaching and learning process. let's have, of course, the outcome-based education, matching with, of course, the intentions and with the accomplishment. Okay, let's have this educational framework now that we can see. So, of course, we need to have inputs and feedback from the industry and professional organization. And we focus more on, of course, the outcomes that we have. So, what are the following, of course, outcomes? So, we have, of course, the course, the program, and the institution. And the sources of these are, of course, with the institution, we have the mission and vision. Okay. Then we have, of course, from the program, of course, we have the program educational objectives and, of course, the student outcomes. Okay, from, of course, the course that we are offering, we have, of course, the course learning outcomes for that matter. Okay, and with this, of course, there is now the improvements. Supposing we are having, okay, the assessment and or evaluation. So we have, of course, institutional assessment for that matter. So supposing if we wanted to know, okay, how many students will be, or probably how many students pass the exam. So that's institutional assessment, for example. Okay, yeah, for example, in a university, take a look with the CPU as an example, as an institution. Okay, what's the passing percentage? What about program assessment? So it talks about, of course, the program that being assessed. Take a look with, of course, B.Ed or BS.Ed program or BPED program. Okay, so we can, of course, assess the program itself. And we have, of course, the course assessment. So when we say, of course, course, what course? Probably EDOC 1103, yeah, no? Facilitating centered learning or building and enhancing new literacies across the curriculum and many other subjects. So that's it. So we bring this no, to have improvements and probably it can shown in our course planning and even in our delivery. Okay, so in the course planning and delivery, we need to have, of course, the syllabus. Now we need to update our syllabus. Okay, and even the references that we have, okay, we need to align our syllabus, okay, to what are expected from, okay, and we also have our teaching methods, okay, or our teaching styles, not techniques, no strategies. We have also learning activities and even our assessment tools. So these, of course, the four no, should jive together, okay, so that of course we can deliver well, no, and we can have our improvements. So this is, of course, the structure of the outcome-based education. And when I say, of course, OBE, there is, of course, the approach, no, and it is continuous process wherein, of course, curriculum, teaching and learning strategies, and assessment tools are improved continuously. So that's it. Now, if we're going to talk about, of course, education, and the OB learning process can be stated into four steps. Again, four. So the first is, of course, we need to have the plan, okay, or planning. We have, of course, the syllabus, writing, or the review. So here we can have, of course, the course learning outcomes rather. It should be aligned with our PEO, no, with our vision and mission, even as students' outcomes. So the syllabi, of course, reflects strategies. Okay, that's why it's called learning plan for achieving the outcomes as well as for measuring the outcomes. And it is known, of course, the assessment. The second is, or letter B is implement. Okay, or that is known as the course delivery. Okay, from the word itself, it is how you, of course, deliver the lesson. So this is carry out, of course, the learning plan, how you carry out not the learning plan and strategies involved in planning for producing, of course, the outcomes that are, of course, expected among us. Then we have, of course, the measures, okay, that is known as the assess. So it talks, of course, of the assessment. So this is to carry out, of course, the strategies planned for measuring. Take note the word measure, not the learning outcomes and objectives. And this is to collect data and analyze it to determine, of course, the result. Okay, which is the assessment phase. So this phase is where, of course, feedback is obtained. And we, of course, discuss in our previous lessons that feedbacking is very important. Yeah, so if we wanted to have, of course, our assessment, which probably can be effective. So there should be, of course, feedbacking. No? And latter days, of course, respond, okay, or to improve, of course. No, there is continuous quality improvement. I like that one. Do not stop after, of course, assessments. We need to have feedback so that, of course, we can improve. So this is when we say, of course, respond and improve, there is, of course, the determination what needs to be changed, not to make, of course, improvements for that matter. And these, of course, changes are the basis of new or revised outcomes and objectives for, of course, the next cycle, meaning the next process that we have. Okay, and this process can be looked at on a program or, of course, a course level. Let's have, of course, the outcome-based education. Probably you will ask, okay, what do you think are the characteristics of outcome-based education? Here are, of course, the answers. Now, when we say outcome-based education, it is education in which, of course, an emphasis is placed on a clearly articulated, of course, idea of what okay, students are expected to know and be able to do. Okay, that's it. Again, what students are expected to know and be able to do, and that is what the skills and, of course, the knowledge they need to have when they leave, of course, the school system. So that's it. What's with them, okay, after no they leave or when they leave, of course, the school system. The other one is, of course, it is an educational theory that bases, of course, each part of an educational experience around goals. So there's, of course, the goals, no? By the end of the educational experience, its students should have achieved the goal. Take note. Okay, useless if you're going to set the goal. Okay, and then, of course, students will not achieve it. So there should be achievement of the goal. Okay, and that is known as, of course, as outcome-based education. Another is that, of course, the change in educational perspective is called, of course, the outcome-based education, which has three characteristics. What are these characteristics? Number one, it is student-centered. Now, from the word itself, it places, of course, the student at the center. Take note, student as the center of the process by, of course, focusing on student learning outcomes or the SLO. The second is that it is faculty driven. So it encourages faculty responsibility for teaching. Take note, if students wanted to learn, we need to teach well. So responsibility, it's the faculty responsibility for teaching, assessing programs, outcomes, and, of course, motivating participation from the students. So we need to mm, mm, motivate, okay, our students to participate or to take part not in the teaching and learning process. And the third is it should be, of course, meaningful. Okay, so it provides data to guide the teacher in, of course, making valid and continuing improvement in instruction and assessment activities. Very nice, no? Okay, if we could have this meaningful. Again, the three characteristics of OBE is that it is student-centered, second is faculty-driven, and the third one, it should be meaningful. So that's it. So, and of course, to implement outcome-based education on the subject or course level, the following procedures are recommended. So we have, of course, number one is the identification of the educational objectives of the course or subject. Take note, identification of the educational objectives. So what the question is, what are your educational objectives? Okay, so when we say educational objectives, these are no the broad goals of the subjects. Take note, course or expects to that we expect rather to achieve. So and of course defining in general terms. Okay, which is of course the KSA. K is for knowledge, S is for skills, and A is for attitude. That of course the teacher will help, of course, sustains to students to attain rather, not that the teacher will help the students to attain. So there is, of course, the teacher as the facilitator to attain the KSA. Okay, and of course, the objectives are stated from the point of view of the teacher, such as to develop, to provide, to enhance, no? To inculcate. Okay. So that's with, of course, educational objectives. The second is that there is the listing of learning outcomes specified for each no, subject or course objective. Okay, so we have, of course, the cognitive domain, which talks about the mental skills and, of course, the knowledge. No, it refers to the mental skills such as remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, synthesizing, and, of course, creating. Okay, the next is, of course, the psychomotor. Okay, when I say, of course, psychomotor, it talks about the manual or the physical skills. Okay, which of course proceed from the mental activities, no, and range from the simplest to the complex, such as of course observing, imitating, practicing, adapting, and of course innovating. Then lastly, it's affective, so also known as of course the attitude, which refers to the growth or emotions from the simplest behavior to the most complex, such as receiving, not responding, valuing, organizing, and internalizing. So that's with, of course, affective. When we say, of course, affective, it's talks about, of course, our attitude and the self itself. No? Okay. So you can see also some, of course, notes in the other side, which talks about, of course, the cognitive, no? Okay. When you say cognitive, these are the objectives and skills that help you process information. Again, this is where, of course, we find Bloom's taxonomy, and we have, of course, the affective. Now, when you say affective, these objectives deals with, of course, the feelings, the emotions, no, the attitudes, the appreciation and preference. And when I say, of course, psychomotor objectives, okay, this includes, of course, those related to motor skills, the manipulative, no, coordination, and physical movement. So that's it. Okay. So to, of course, as what I've mentioned, to implement outcome based, no, another possible procedures that we can recommend is to draft outcome assessment procedures. So there should be drafting of outcomes assessment procedure. So this procedure, of course, will help the teacher to determine the degree to which, of course, the students are attaining the desired learning outcomes. And of course, it identifies, no, for every outcome the data that will be gathered, which will guide, of course, the selection of the assessment tools to be used at, and at what point assessment will be done. I like that one. No, there is now the strategy to look at, no, the assessment tools that you're going to use, and of course, what point assessment will be done. Okay, probably it answers the question when, no, when. So it could be, of course, in the beginning, in the middle, or probably at the end, no, of the lesson. So that's it. Okay, so you can, of course, have the procedure there. Let's have the differentiation of traditional education versus, of course, the outcome-based education. So in the traditional, of course, there is the grades, and it is based on rank, not rank-based assessment. Okay, however, in, of course, the outcome-based education, there is the desired outcome goals. Okay, and it is goals based assessment. No? When say, of course, traditional, there is summative assessment. Okay. However, of course, in the outcome based, it is both formative and summative assessment. So we do not just focus more on with the summative. Okay. In the traditional, grades are derived from assignments, exams, and etc. Okay. But in the outcome based education, completion, of course, implies that the students have achieved, no, the set goals. And lastly, judgment methods shaped from previous result is with, of course, traditional education. However, in the outcome-based education, judgment methods shape from continuous evaluation. So I like that one. There is continuous evaluation. Okay, so the more we evaluate, probably, of course, the better. Okay, so that's it. And another probably explanation with, of course, the outcome-based education, if we're going to ask now, okay, what is outcome-based education? It provides direction now in the planning of learning activity. I like that one. The second is it focus learners' behavior and what is to be changed. Yeah, there should be change in the behavior, supposing now after. And the server as a or it serves as guidelines for content, instruction, and evaluation. And we have, of course, we identify, of course, specifically what should be learned automatic now. we have that in mind, no, in the mind of the students, what should be learned, and of course, it convey to learners exactly what is to be accomplished. So by of course having these, no, descriptions of what is outcome based education, it will create, no, a clear probably aspect of what are expected among us if we have of course outcome based education. So let's have, of course, the objectives. So we have, of course, the clear learning goals. Now, I like that one. Clear learning goals. So the primary, of course, objective of outcome-based learning is to establish clear learning goals or outcomes that students are expected to achieve. Okay, and these probably outcomes outline what specific skills, the knowledge and competencies that students should attain by the end of a course or program. So that's it. The second is, of course, it is student-centered approach. Okay, from the word itself, now the center is the students. Okay, so outcome-based learning places students at the center of the learning process. We empower them not to make ownership of their education. I like that word. We empower them to make or to take ownership of their education. And it encourages, of course, active engagement, even critical thinking, problem solving, and self direction for that matter. And the third is that alignment with real world needs. Yeah, this is very, no, practical for that matter. So outcome based learning aims to align educational outcomes with the needs and demands of the real world. So what's the needs? Okay, what's probably the demand? No? By focusing on relevant and practical skills, students are better prepared for future academic and professional success. I like that one. Okay, we need to prepare students, okay, for future, no, academic and professional success. So thus we have, of course, this outcome-based education. Let's have the importance of outcome-based education. The first is, of course, it is measurable progress because of rather measurable progress and accountability. So it provides, of course, a framework for measuring students' progress from the word measurable progress and assessing their mastery of specific learning outcomes. It promotes accountability and enables, of course, educators to track individual student achievement. So that's it. Okay, therefore, we need to be accountable of our progress, of our learning. The second is relevant and practical skills. So it ensures that students acquire skills and knowledge that are applicable and valuable in real life contexts. Okay, useless is if we cannot have, of course, the skills and the knowledge which we need in the real life context. Okay, and this prepares, of course, them to tackle challenges and succeed in their future academic pursuits and, of course, career. Very nice. The third is, of course, personalized learning. I like it, no? So by clearly, of course, defining learning outcomes, outcome-based learning allows for personalized learning experiences. So students, of course, can tailor their learning pathways based on their individual interests, their strengths, and of course, areas of growth. Yeah, we need to know, of course, our interest, even probably no our limitations, our strengths, no, and in the areas wherein we can grow. So we need to identify. Then, of course, the last is lifelong learning mindset. I like that. Very positive. Okay, so the outcome based, of course, learning cultivates a lifelong learning mindset by emphasizing the acquisition of transferable skills. Okay, critical thinking abilities. No, are we critical thinker? And a growth oriented attitude. I like that one. Be positive. We need to grow. Okay, we need to become, of course, successful. So that's it. Okay, and of course, if we're going to compare this outcome-based education to other models, so the first probably that we can have is the mastery-based education. From the word mastery, so there should be no the word master there. Okay. So if you notice now in the diagram that we have, that mastery based education is okay, at the center, probably inside. Okay. What's with, of course, mastery based education? There is, of course, the criteria for measuring proficiency, no, and it's adaptive to learner needs. Okay, there is, of course, the learner support that is provided, and of course, adequate time to achieve proficiency. So there is time, no? Hindi po tayo nagmamadali doon. Okay. So there should be time to achieve. Okay. And of course, we need to provide, of course, learner support. And we are, of course, adaptive to the learner's need. No, there is, of course, the criteria in measuring proficiency. Okay, the next is of course competency-based education. So it's of course in the outside, no? Okay, it's embracing the mastery-based education. So what's of course the characteristics, no? In the competency-based education, all characteristics of mastery-based education, okay, are there. Plus, of course, the self-paced, no? We need to consider, of course, the pace, the self-pace of the students. And lastly, of course, the wider in scope is, of course, the outcome-based education. Why it is so? Okay, because when we say outcome-based education, all characteristics of competency-based education, plus understanding why proficiency matters. Yeah, very nice. Okay. So what's with competency-based education? It's the mastery-based education. And this, okay, competency-based education are present, okay, with the outcome-based education plus the understanding why proficiency matters. Bakit nga ba talaga, no? Why there is a need for us to be proficient. No? So that's it. Okay. Why we need to have, of course, mastery. That's the question. So let's have now, of course, the outcomes of education. So when we say, of course, outcomes, it's the result. No? Okay. So when we say outcome-based education, it focuses, okay, in classroom instruction skills and, of course, competencies that students must demonstrate when they exit, when they go out. So there are, of course, two types of outcomes, the immediate and, of course, the deferred outcomes. So when we say immediate, agad-agad. Okay. So immediate outcomes, of course, are competencies or skills acquired upon completion of a subject. Yeah, one subject. A grade level, for example, grade 3, grade 4, or a segment of the program, or if the program itself. Such, okay, these are, of course, the immediate outcomes that we can have. So example is the ability to communicate in writing and speaking. Yeah, you can communicate well through writing and speaking. Mathematical problem solving skills. You can have skill in identifying objects, no, by using different senses. The ability to produce artistic and literary works, no, the ability to do research and write the results, even the ability to present and investigate science project skills in storytelling, even promotion to a higher grade level is an example of immediate outcomes. Let's have the second. Of course, it is the deferred outcomes. So when we say deferred outcomes, it refers to the ability to apply cognitive, psychomotor, and affective skills or competencies in various situations many years after completion of a subject, grade level or degree program. So for example, you are teaching already. So that's it. That's is known as the deferred, no, outcomes. Example that we can have or examples with this. Okay, are of course success in professional practice or occupation, no? Naging bonggaetan teacher na kayo. Okay, then there is promotion in a job from one level to the other. Okay, from teacher 1 to teacher 2, teacher 2 to teacher 3, or from teacher 1 to teacher 3, for example, or master teacher. Okay, or from assistant professor to associate professor or to full professor. So that's it. Then we have, of course, promotion in a job, success in career planning, even health and wellness, and of course, awards and recognition. So that's it. These are example of deferred outcomes. Okay, and these are referred also as, of course, the institutional outcomes. Okay, let's discuss institutional program, course, and learning outcomes now together. Okay, so you can see here, of course, a picture. Yeah, this is a diagram. So probably sa pinaka lower portion, that in the lower portion is the lesson outcomes. But it embraces, of course, no? It is the lesson outcomes is inside the course unit outcomes. And this course unit outcomes and lesson outcomes are inside, of course, the program outcomes. And of course, the bigger probably in scope is the institutional outcomes. Let's discuss one by one. Yeah, no. Okay, so when I say, of course, institutional program or course and learning outcomes, these are the attributes that the graduate or a graduate rather of an institution is expected to demonstrate 3 or more than 3 years after graduation. Okay, so let's have, of course, when we say outcomes in the outcome-based education come in different levels. So as what I mentioned, we have, of course, the learning outcomes or the lesson outcomes. The next is the course or unit outcomes. Then we have, of course, the program outcomes and institutional outcomes. Okay, again, we have, of course, 4 levels. Okay. So when I say, of course, lesson or learning or instructional outcomes, these are what students should be able to do after a lesson or instruction. So after a lesson, that's the lesson outcomes. Okay. When we say course or subject outcomes, these are what students should be able to demonstrate at the end of the course or subject. So probably in one semester, you end the course or the subject. Okay. The next is, of course, program outcomes. These are what the graduates of particular educational programs or degrees are able to do at the completion of the degree. Okay. So that's program outcomes. So at the end, no? Okay. At the end of the program. So meaning he graduated the program. Okay, and of course, institutional outcomes. These are statements of what the graduates of an educational institutions are supposed to be able to do beyond graduation. So that's it, no? It's beyond graduation for that matter. Okay. Let's have an example of institutional outcomes. Let's take with, of course, Central Philippine University as our model school or university. Okay. So here are our institutional outcomes. Okay, in 3 to 5 years after graduation, graduates of Central Philippine University shall, number one, practice professionalism with integrity and, of course, demonstrate Christ-like character. The second is, of course, demonstrate patriotism and be law-abiding citizens. The third is use responsibly God-given talents, the skills and resources to promote well-being and productivity of communities and society. Then the fourth is demonstrate technological competence in the practice of profession and demonstrate continuous effort to grow professionally. So if you're going to see, it's very nice, no? Okay, to have this kind of institutional outcomes for Central Philippine University. Okay, let's have an example of program outcomes, and we are referring to the Bachelor of Elementary Education. So our B.Ed graduates, no? Okay, demonstrate in-depth understanding of the diversity of learners in various learning areas. Okay, then letter B is manifest meaningful and comprehensive pedagogical content knowledge or the PCK of the different subject areas. The third is utilize appropriate assessment and evaluation tools to measure learning outcomes. D is to manifest skills in communication, higher order thinking skills, and the use of tools and technology to accelerate learning and teaching. Take note, use of tools and technology to accelerate learning and teaching. Then we have manifest nationalism and desire to advocate patriotism and multiculturalism, love for country. Okay, not just for the country, but of course the world. Okay, then we have here letter F. Okay, demonstrate skills in curriculum development because in of course teaching we need to develop our curriculum, even lesson planning, instructional materials, no development, our IMs, instructional delivery, and of course educational assessment. Take note when we say educational, instructional delivery, so it talks about how we deliver, it talks about our style, strategy, techniques, and even our assessment. How do we assess? So that's it. That's with the letter F. Okay, we have G is to demonstrate in-depth understanding of development of elementary school learners, even in their behaviors. Yeah. Then exhibit comprehensive knowledge of various learning areas in the elementary curriculum. And of course, practice professional and ethical teaching standards that are based upon sound Christian values. Take note. Christian values that responds to the varying needs of the learners and community. So that's what, of course, program outcomes for BEd. Okay. And of course, manifest a desire to continuously pursue personal and professional development. I like that one, no? We do not just probably stop after graduating our baccalaureate degree, but we need to pursue higher education, probably attend trainings, seminars, conferences, and so on. And we can do a lot probably no, in developing ourselves, particularly our professional development. Let's have the program outcomes for BS Ed English sample. This is just a sample. Okay, so we have, of course, possess broad knowledge of language and literature for effective learning. We have used English as a local no, language in multilingual contexts. As it applies, of course, to teaching of language and literature. Then acquire extensive reading background in language, literature, and allied fields. And then, of course, demonstrate proficiency in oral and written communication. I like that. Okay, then show competence in employing innovative language and literature, teaching approaches, even methodologies and strategies, and of course, use technology in facilitating language learning and teaching. And then inspire students and colleagues to lead relevant and transformative changes to improve learning and teaching language and literature. And of course, lastly, display skills and abilities to be a reflective and research-oriented language and literature teacher. So that's it. That's the program for outcomes for BSED English. Okay, so I hope you learned something from, of course, our lessons. Okay, discuss in this video lecture video. So for our, of course, references, here are okay the sources of our notes, not for this lecture video. Thank you so much for today. I hope you learned something, and I am wishing that you're going to um, open some, of course, my lecture video pertaining to, of course, our subject matter. And don't forget to pray, study hard, and of course, to take good care. God bless. Thank you for today. Okay. And wishing you the best in life. Again, this is your Sir A. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, to have comment, and of course, to share this video. Bye. God bless.